Okay, it should be recording this screen now. All right, let's close out this and that. So now that I'm in JobSite, this is all UI related talk. So anything we talk about in this be related to Ember, basically. So, all right, so with Ember, the reason why I wanted to do this is first to walk through Ember's ecosystem, because I know a lot of people jumping in this project aren't familiar with it. So that's the biggest reason why I want to jump on this. But then at the end, I want to answer any questions for anyone that's having trouble navigating. So hopefully what I present will and answer those questions. But if not, then we'll leave some time at the end. All right, so you can see here all that we're in this folder. Let's open it up in there and see what we have here. Okay, so the way that Ember structures its files, whenever you do an install, it adds a lot of these, it adds everything for you all out of the gate. It adds the app, config, public, obviously no modules, comes with package.json, the test and vendor, and then it has some configurations for ESLint and such. The file that you'll mainly be in is the app folder, and that's where we're probably going to navigate a ton. Environment folder or environment file is where you configure anything related to the endpoint. Right now we have it. Actually, I haven't moved it over into here, so the configuration I think is an adapter application. Yeah, so it's just sitting in here. You can also move that over into the environment inside here. I may do that later, but for right now, I think it's fine. So you may not even use config until we move into publishing it. If we do, actually, we'll use environment when we start configuring the authentication. I may handle a ton of that just because there's a lot in it. And I've never actually done authentication with Go, so I've done it with Ruby on Rails. This will be an interesting challenge for me to jump on. Okay, so that config is mainly for hitting the endpoint. The file structure in here is going to be based on what we run in terminal. So if we are wanting to, for instance, the two PRs that are up now, both as are in component. So for those who haven't worked in the project yet, what they did was they ran Ember G, which G you can also do generate. Ember G component, and then Alan, you already know this, but then you just type in the name of that component. So for instance, you did a sub nav, we can do side nav or whatever. This isn't going to stay, but and then you hit enter. And I don't have Ember installed here. Dang it. I got to install Ember CLI. Hoping to get all the installs done before I start hitting record. I think it's just Ember CLI. Let's see. Hold on.
It's npm install -g ember -cli, and the G will make it global.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, so that's going to install all the basically the commands that we're going to access. It's actually been a while since I've used Ember, so it's a good refresher for me. So while that's installing, it when we run that command, it's going to put a file in component folder if we add a -p. If we don't add a -p, it'll create a new folder with that file type name. Okay, let's try this again. So Ember G component, and then just the name of the component. I'll probably end up deleting that, but that's what we'll use for now. Okay, there is something in here we need to fix. Okay. All right. So as you can see here, it created it inside the component. Oh, I didn't use -p. So without using -p, it puts it in the component folder. I think I have that. I think I said that wrong. So if we were to, the thing to note, and this is a good example, if you want to get rid of it, you just do D, and that's delete. And it deletes your test file, and it deletes the generated component. So if you do -p, it will. Okay, so it still puts it in the components, but now it's in a folder first, and then it's just called templates. So either one's really going to be fine. I lean toward the -p. Some companies don't use the -p, but I lean toward it. It's just easier to organize, in my opinion, because if you're going to, you can see how it skipped creating the component JS. So if you want to generate that as well, to add a class, you can do component dash class. I'm not sure why the standard now is skipping component JS. There's probably another flag in there that they've added to that. I don't know why that's a default. I'll have to look that up later and post in the channel if I find something. But it should have created that with it. Anyhow, let me do something else. So without the -p, does it create the component? It skips it again. Okay. I don't know why that's the default. Maybe because if you're just doing UI, you just want the HBS file. If you want functionality, you're gonna want the JS file. Maybe typically the people don't. I don't know. I don't know why that's. I'll have to. There's probably a simple flag that you just add to get that in there. Anyways, so that's one thing for components. To note, there's a ton of commands in here that we'll use. The next one is going to be, let's just do this. So we already have jobs in here for that file. We should be able to run Ember S, and that should run the local server and get it working to where we can see it work as we are making changes. So for anyone that hasn't used Ember, I guess it is good that we had to install the CLI for those who are trying to use Ember and they don't have the CLI commands installed in their local. They now have that install command. The other thing is running Ember S. That'll get your local server up and running. You just hover over it with command and then click. We'll open up this URL, and then you type, I believe it's job or jobs. And now I'm going to get the backend running so you can see. Endpoint. Let's see. Stack Overflow creating. Oh, nice, on Ember. Sweet. Post that into the Slack channel to JobSite combo, and people will be able to access that. All right, so I'm just going to show how to get the, I think this is important even for front end, how to get the API running, because you don't need to know, like if you're not going to work on the back end, you don't need to know a ton. You just need to know how to get it running. So to do that, you need Go installed. I already have it installed, so this should work. I don't know if I have to do any local installs for that file or not, but just run. Let's run Go Mango maybe. Let's see, what is that? You forget, you can look in the README, and yeah, just go run Mango. I'll get the API up and running so you can see if your front end is working. I think it's running. So let's refresh. Ah, there we go. Now we see it doesn't really tell you. We could probably add something in the Go APIs whenever we're running. It'll post the note, say, hey, the server's running. Like we could probably add a little note. Right now it looks like it borked, but it's working. So that's kind of funny. We can update a little pull request on that. Okay, so this is what I pushed up. I know the guys, Alan and Damien right now are pushing up some new UI, and it's a work in progress, but it's starting to look really good. Let's find out where these files are and how we knew to even ping jobs. And then I'll explain some things about that jobs folder, models and stuff. Okay, so the way we got to, if you're curious about what endpoints are available in you go to router.js. It's inside the app folder, and that tells you every single route that's available for that front end application that's in Ember, which is fantastic. If you are if you're not familiar with Ember, this is a nice tip to figure out what is available to ping inside that application. So the next thing is that code right there is actually generated. There's a lot of boilerplate code that gets you started, and the way you get that generated is you do Ember G route, and then for that one specifically, it was jobs. We'll do company. We'll do companies. Let's see. I always forget if it'll add the S, if it makes it plural for me, or if I need to do that. So we'll just make it singular right now and see if it pluralizes it. Okay, it didn't make it plural. So now you can see that it added a new route called company, and it added a new file, route.js, and a folder company, because we did the -p. If we didn't do the -p, it would have added them separately. So, and I can show you that. All right, so now let's remove the -p and just do G. And the difference is it'll add inside the routes, templates, folders. So um, I'm used to, and the controllers folder too. So if you do any functionality, majority of it will be in controllers. Well, controllers JS or that controllers folder, and then you would label it that file name. So majority of the file creation is best to do through the CLI tool, this command line, because it also generates a test for you, and then you can add in some test coverage additionally to what it already adds. It adds a really basic test in there. It's not really doing a ton. For this one, I think it's just checking if that route, when you ping it, if it works or not. Okay, and then, so if we were wanting to keep everything in routes, we could do it that way. I've found that when I found -p is a little easier to organize, like to keep organized instead of jumping from one folder to the next. It's nice to keep it all in one folder. So because you'll jump from template to route to controller quite a bit, but just for one particular file. So adding -p just to keep it all in that one, I find it to be less of a cognitive overload. Oh, whoops, that's not gonna work. Okay, and then okay, so then after it's created, so these routes, controllers, those two folders we could probably delete if we since we're probably not going to use them. And then since we have application, if we want to keep the app consistent, we could probably move application HBS into a file called that, right? A folder called that, and then just rename this to template. And then that way the whole app is going to be consistent instead of using these generic names and then having to keep them inside there. That's probably a pull request that I'll put up and update that just to clean it up a little bit. So yeah, for this project, I want us to use the -p just to keep the things organized based on the name of that endpoint that you're hitting. So if you're going to, example, jobs, everything that we have in here, the data that we're pinging is going to come through route.js file. And here, for example, we're accessing the job endpoint by running model and then that model function and then passing in return. Just find all those endpoints for job. Okay, and then for the template, if you haven't used handlebars, this probably is going to be foreign to you. Probably be good to do some Googling and looking at some of how handlebars renders its data and how it works, just the syntax. But to me, I like it because it you can use it alongside normal HTML. So you can see you have normal div tags, and then when you're passing in data, you have these double curly brackets to represent, hey, this is actually dynamic. And so if you are accessing a job model, wanting that data to pass through, this is what that would look like, a little each loop. Something else I haven't explained is if you're creating a new endpoint, you need to create a new model. And that is generated as well for If you see this message, it's you just need to update your VS Code experimental decorator. Yeah, I think you just enable that. I think that should fix that message. Yeah, there you go. Okay, so if you saw that in the model, it was barking about the experimental decorators message for, I think it was TypeScript or JS. But that went away just because I enabled it in the VS Code. All right, so how we got this was I generated it in the terminal. And let's do another one. Let's do for company. I'm not going to keep this. I'm just going to delete it afterwards, but just so we have something to work with. So Ember G model and then company. Now, something that you do next is you label what's going to be the attributes to company. And one of them's going to be name, which is a string. We'll do what else? Maybe there's social media, so Twitter, string, Facebook, um, um, bio, maybe. All right. So now if you look over here in the models folder, you'll see it pop up. So it generated um, name, Twitter, Facebook, bio, and they're all string types. That, for the most part, will cover the majority. The only thing we have left is even routes. I think we can delete that. I think I said that earlier. Routes, controller, and template folder we'll be deleting. The styles is, I think, the last to cover in this video that I haven't really touched on before answering any questions. I could touch on controller too. I don't think I touched on that any yet either. Okay, so last two things. Styles. There's no styles in here right now, but it's just CSS. If we want, we can change this to just be a SCS file, and now we have Sass-like. We can create variables and all that fun stuff. So that should work out of the gate too. I don't think you have to install anything else. I think it may come out of the gate. If it doesn't, I think it should be just a simple install for Sass or CSS. But we don't have to do that. I don't really care regardless what we use. But if someone can push up a PR for that and make that change if they want to get more variables inside our code to keep things. It does make it a little easier when you're doing color changes and stuff like that to make sure they're all consistent. Not a ton more to say about the style CSS. You can do obviously where app is the main file and everything imports into it. Instead of just having one big massive file with all the styles, it's typically good to do. You could do, I mean, there's a ton of different ways. I don't know which way we want to do for this project, but one way you could do is just label it based on the endpoint. So if you just want to do jobs.c, unless we're going to reuse some things, if we're going to reuse a lot of styles for something, then maybe put it in a new file and label whatever, like if it's a component, I guess, or something, we could probably label it based on that component. But I'm not a stickler on exactly how we do that. The last thing for controller is if you want to generate that, Ember G controller, and then let's see, company -P. So if you go into company, yeah, controller.js. So now we have a class that's going to extend controller. So everything in Ember, all that controller functionality, we now have access to. And if you're not familiar with using controllers, you have to do, let's see, actions, I believe. And then everything inside actions is where you can add your functionality. It's been a little while on using controllers. I could pull up some of my old projects as well. Let's see here. Just looking for an example. Routing. Might be in get started. Let's see. The documentation is really good. So if you ever have any other questions outside of this, which you will, this is a great place to go. Okay, so for component, the way they're doing a component is you import it, and then you do add action, and then there you define what that function is. So show person is the name of the function. You're going to pass in a person and then just run the alert with that data. Interesting. Okay. I wonder if they did away with the way that controllers are being implemented. Some of this I'm kind of having to brush back up on because I work mainly in React now. Because their core concepts there used to be something called controllers. I'm not seeing it. Okay, so for now, I would go off this component example. And interesting. Yeah, where we imported, so it wouldn't be, instead of wrapping it like that, it looks like you would just do add action. And it doesn't know it's in there, so then you have to import it. That's for components. I might have to do something on that one. Because I don't know if we may just stick to components for all the functionality, just build out. I know we're doing that with the top nav, sub nav. We may even keep all our functionality in different components, similar to how React does it. You know what I mean? So if we go the React mentality, it would probably be fine anyways. And I think that's another reason why they are putting a lot of focus on component-based building, because I know people are used to that with Ember. Interesting. I didn't expect that. Okay. All right. Well, I think that's going to be the end of this. walk through. Obviously, there's going to be some testing. QUnit DOM are some of the, I think, standards that they use for basic testing. I would read through here and see some of the examples. Pretty straightforward stuff that it comes out of the gate with. And yeah. All right. All right, Alan, go ahead and if you got any questions, man. I think now is going to be a good time.
Yeah. So when you hit that jobs endpoint, how did you generate the stuff from the API?
For sure. So as long as you have, um, did you see me do? I guess I did the git clone out of the recording. I didn't do it inside the recording.
Yeah. No. So if I have the API running and I have the server running on the front end, how? So you hit the jobs endpoint.
Yeah.
Where are you making that request to the API on the front end?
Inside the route. So this .store.find all is similar. It's a fetch command, similar to like query all or you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
So anytime you're fetching data, you want to do it inside the route.js file.
And that is then putting it in the job model.
Exactly. Yeah. So whenever you route.js, whenever you get data inside that file, you have access to it inside templates.
So in that job template, you have access to the data that you get back from the route.js.
Right.
As a job. Gotcha.
Yeah. And if you just run go run main go inside your API folder, that's all you need to get that endpoint
Right.
Data coming up. And then you can let's see here, inside network tab, go to XHR and then click on that, and then you can see the preview has all that data coming back.
Gotcha.
Any other questions about Ember's layout? It's pretty straightforward. But yeah, we don't even need, like, I think we could remove these and it not even do anything. I think our stuff is in components folder right now, isn't it? Or is it not?
Well, yeah, it's in components and then in subfolders. At least all the HBS files. So like for the top nav and sub nav stuff, it's in components, then in a top nav folder.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I think that's fine. We there's different ways you can skin a cat. As long as it happens. I'm not like a stickler on exactly how things are. The good thing about it is there's really only two different options for Ember, so it's not going to be complicated for people to follow. That's the good thing about it. Like for React, if we were to jump in a React project, there's a lot more flexibility to it, so much so that you get lost in it and not really know what the standard is. But for Ember, it kind of is extremely opinionated, so they kind of got that pretty early on.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a little harder to go outside the bounds of its setup. Something else to note is services. So whenever we start to get a current user, logged in or whatever, I'll be creating a service that will listen throughout the whole app, whether to find out whether you're logged in or not. Cool. Any other questions, man, before we jump off?
I don't think so.
Awesome. Cool, man. Well, I'm glad seeing how far we've come already on this project. I guess I mean, since we're talking about front end, I'm gonna say some things about GitHub and how we have that set up real quick, and then I'll be done. Let's see, what did I do with that? Okay. So if for people that haven't started a pull request yet, go inside the issues and you can see tech stack choice. I think that issue can be closed. We decided that one. And then feature requests should be posted here. So if there's any feature requests that y'all see, you can add it here in the comments. What we have started is a style guide UI from Damien. And that's just for reference. But if you want to start building something, pick one section, label it that in your PR, and just get to work. Make sure that you push up all your code, so that if someone else wants to jump in and help you, like if you get stuck or if you can't work on it for a few days, someone else is interested in helping, then they can pull in your latest and help as well. So right now we have the top nav, we have the sub nav being worked on, but the main content and jobs, the side menu, those two things could easily be pulled in and worked on. Yeah, so we have top nav, sub nav being worked on, sidebar, menu, list on the left, or main content on the right. Those things could be worked on. Companies and people, that stuff is going to be coming later. If you wanted to even work out the data model, I have posted it here what the jobs is. If you wanted to post up what companies would be or people would be, that would be something else to work through. So and one of the other things is we're try to have at least one person approve your PR before merging. And if you're doing UI work, which everybody on front end majority will have somewhat of UI, try to add screenshots like they're doing here to see the progress. If you can add a little testing in there, that'll help with coverage and usability. Make sure that if they're in the test, if you can add tests that are basically, hey, I clicked this and it works or whatever, that stuff is good for the long-term stability. And it's good for people just to learn how to write good tests. So yeah, don't merge it unless you got one approved. And I think that's it for the then. Sweet. Let me turn this recording off.